Issues 20 and 21 of Stormbringer magazine, parts 1 and 2 of the Marshcrawler Sloggoth. Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games, and today we're going to be doing issues 20 and 21 of Hachette's Stormbringer magazine, which is part 1 and 2 of the Marshcrawler Sloggoth. Now, the first issue is interesting because it's predominantly lore. So there's some very interesting kind of lore bits and pieces here. You have the monsters of the Chaos Waste, so among them are things called the Mind Stealer Spheranxes, which is no doubt kind of based on the Sphinx because it's kind of a cat-like creature. But not only has it got claws and teeth, it also has actually a massive command of magic. So they're very lethal monsters to come across. You have the Chimeras, which is kind of a mixture of many animals and many beasts. So no doubt kind of a result of chaos in its nature. And you have the Cygors, which are actually interesting because they're essentially bigger, angrier ogres who, instead of eating flesh, eat magic, so they're very nasty for magic users. We also have here, I'm just going to put away the sheets and put them into my actual folder a little later. We have here the Spearhead, which is a story. It's part 3 of the ongoing story. You also have some lore here on the Fire Slayers, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which are essentially dwarfs that craft runes that they hammer into their skin, which give them kind of extra bouts of magic and speed and kind of otherworldly powers, and they're kind of very earth-sworn or oath-bound type of creatures that will kind of go to the ends of the earth to right or wrong, or to settle a grudge. You have here the Marshcrawler Sloggoth, which of course is the stats for it, and you have a fairly elaborate build guide. Now there is quite a few pages on the build guide because there's actually a lot to this. There is the Marshcrawler Sloggoth itself and the actual basket it carries, but also 3 little minifigures that go on top of it, 2 fellas with nets and a guy banging a drum. You also have here, of course, some rules in terms of mounts and how they play. And you have, of course, the Dawn of War, which is another kind of match between the forces of order and disorder. Part 2 is much more a kind of a technical issue. So you have here kind of a practical guide to magic, which kind of talks about magic in the other realms and the different institutions and what to do with them. You have here a kind of a technique, so basically it gives you the basics of the symbols, different bits and pieces, so a kind of a more elaborate guide to help you on building your pieces. A kind of a very basic one that I'm kind of surprised to see about 20 issues in, but nevertheless it's there. You also have basically something called How to Paint Marshcrawler Sloggoth, so that's an interesting little guide because it will basically talks about sub-assembly and how to kind of get the pieces painted together and put them together so that you can see that both they fit and how they go together. So there is a fairly established or well-introduced paint guide up to a point. It only, of course, uses the paints that you have with the issues so far, but nevertheless I have one here that'll be fully painted. And you have the rules core and introduction, and of course the stats or the war scroll on the Marshcrawler Sloggoth, the tutorial, and a mission called the Pits of Peril, where you get to use your Marshcrawler Sloggoth. And as for the actual miniature itself, well, I have to say this one was great fun to put together. I absolutely love it. It is a fantastic looking miniature. I was delayed a little bit because I was looking for a particular skin color called rat skin for the creature, but unfortunately there are a little bit of issues with Games Workshop at the moment in terms of the supply. I think they're changing over to a big new inventory, so a lot of their orders have been delayed. So unfortunately I couldn't delay it any further, so I just used another skin tone, and I like to think that I got away with it, that it's the Marshcrawler Sloggoth turned out the way that I like. The head is quite interesting because this is a way to practice the eyes. You can actually paint under the eyes the way that the head pops on, and so you can actually paint and dot the eye before you slot the actual head on if you wanted to kind of get a proper degree of pupils. You have here, of course, 3 of the little kind of grots or gretchens or goblins that are on top of one fella, banging the drums to kind of keep a nice cool little rhythm. And you have 2 fellas with nets and kind of grabbers and hooks to just kind of grab whatever's comes across their path. Now, there is alternative builds for these guys. You can have spears and things like that. So if you do end up getting 2 of these issues, you can make 2 different versions of this creature. Also, little things here like the ladder to climb up can be put on the other side. So there's lots of cool little things. Like here, there's a kind of a tiny little assembled ladder that you can kind of glue in here. So you can actually change the model around a little bit. Even here at the back, I love the fact that there's, you know, there's extra chains and extra things here that you can kind of put on. And even here at the top, the details of some of the things they caught, like severed hands, severed heads, things like that. You know, that there was I think this so far is my favorite model of the series, because it is just a hideous, horrible looking thing. But one other little thing I noticed is, you know, he seems like he's got a bad kind of grip of the stick here, because he's obviously tied down by a rock that he's dragging along. But they did give him a little cushion, you know, so he has a little cushion on top of him for these guys to just kind of ride and attack monsters on top of him with. But nevertheless, the Marshcrawler Sloggoth, I think, is a exceptional little miniature that just looks class on the tabletop. It's a very imaginative sculpt, a very imaginative build. It takes a little bit of time, but nevertheless, this is something that is definitely great fun to paint. And one other thing I wanted to mention is you get 2 heads, so he can be looking this way or he can be looking the other way. So, you know, there's nice little variabilities. So if you're someone who's getting, maybe if you see a model that you like and you want to get 1 or 2 copies of the magazine, this is definitely one that you should consider. So the Marshcrawler Sloggoth, which is issues 21 and 22 of Stormbringer magazine, an absolute excellent first-rate mini. This is a top-class one, and one I would urge everyone to try at least once. So as always, if you like these videos, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And until next time, good luck, God bless, and check out soon for the next issue of Warhammer Stormbringer.